Cool. Hello. So, welcome to our fourth live stream in the series for our Demystifying AI project. In the previous live streams, Nat has been meeting with local researchers to discuss the various forms of AI, the pros and cons of chatbots. And last week, we heard about a really positive use of AI for studying and improving ecosystems, including Earth's soils. So make sure you catch up on our previous streams on our YouTube channel if you've missed any. This week, I am delighted to be joined by a local researcher and professor in computational social science at the University of Exeter, Professor Travis Coan. Travis, thank you so much for joining the live stream.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's great to be here.
So for everyone watching at home, please put your questions in the chat throughout. I've got a few questions for Travis. I hope you guys have as well. And we've had a few in our Google form as well. So yeah, hopefully this should be a really interesting discussion. But you can pop a question in the chat at any point, and we'll hopefully get to it. Cool. So let me go in my form. Excuse me for my eyes flicking to my other screen. So firstly, Travis, please could you give us a brief summary of your career path to where you are now? How do you become a professor in computational social science? That's awesome. And could you tell us what computational social science involves?
Yeah, great. Well, yeah, thanks again for having me. It's great to be here. So my path, yeah, I'll give you the short version. Yeah, so I started out as a statistician. So I was at Harvard Law School teaching statistics and running the empirical research services there. So I was coming much more from a statistics sort of background, but being at a law school, and my PhD is in political science, so I'm coming from have the social science in my blood. Yeah, kind of started to think, well, what does social science have? It has lots and lots of text, and how can we start to process and look at all that text at scale? Well, we need some sort of model to do that. And so I started a project with a friend of mine who's now at Trinity College Dublin, Constantine Boussalis, and it was our first foray into statistical models of natural language. And now that's kind of all I do. So yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell. And now I'm in Exeter.
That's fantastic. And I think I get really excited by pathways that are, I think often we get funneled down one route, or we assume that you just do maths, or you just do science, or you just do arts, and actually I think we don't solve the world's problems that way. We solve them with crossover subjects. And
absolutely, yeah, and that's kind of what computational social science is all about as well, right? Because it really is kind of using, I guess, computational methods, so traditionally sort of more common in the mathematics and statistics and engineering sort of fields to study social phenomena and social questions, which is often, I would argue, much harder. And I think most honest engineers would argue the same thing. It's that it's quite a bit more difficult. But yeah.
Very cool. So yeah, my next question. So a huge amount of your work has been focused on language, and you've seen the development of large language models since the early days. A few people have asked us, how come they seem to appear all of a sudden with ChatGPT and now all the other models? And can you tell us a bit about the development of large language models? And maybe it might be useful if people haven't seen the other streams, just to give an extremely short, what do we mean by large language models? What is that then?
Yeah. I mean, yes, I'll do my best. I'll start from the.
Sorry, this is 10 questions.
No, I mean, it caught everybody by surprise. I think, except for maybe a handful of engineers at OpenAI, I think it caught everybody by surprise. And I mean, the sort of basic machinery for LLMs and artificial intelligence has been around for a long time, and the neural networks, that's kind of what all the sort of large language models we look at these days have been around for decades. But it wasn't till sort of the stars aligned, in a sense, that where we had sort of things called deep neural networks. I don't want to get too much into it, but a neural network is really just a model that takes in data and learns patterns from that data. And deep neural networks are those models, but they have various layers, right? And so with a deep neural network, what you're thinking about is as you go through this process, right, you're learning more from very sort of simple sort of bits to more complex bits as you go through. So if you think about, like, I give you an image of a dog, right? And the first layer is going to learn, oh, okay, yeah, it's has some sort of shapes, right? So it has a oval face and, you know, triangle ears or whatever. The next layer is going to pass that along and learn, oh, but it's kind of hairy, and oh, its tongue is sticking out its mouth. And the next layer, and as it goes through, it learns more and more and more and more what a dog is all about. And so a language model in the same way does the same thing for text. It kind of goes through this sort of process of learning sort of more and more complicated or complex representations. So when you stick in a text like, you know, Travis is not a very good professor, or whatever, right? It goes, you know, the model understands a little bit about what the English language looks like. It understands that professor and Travis might go together. And so it learns those sorts of patterns. That's kind of a language model, but why did it be like, bam, like, come on, is like, it was kind of a confluence of things. So there was a paper in 2017. So that's not that long. That feels like yesterday to me, but I mean, it's almost been like 10 years. But 2017, that was called Attention is All You Need. And this was a paper written by a bunch of researchers at Google. And so they set out to like solve this really, it's not an easy, but kind of a traditional problem in machine translation. So how do you go from English to Spanish, right? Something like that. And in kind of not knowingly, they built the sort of basic architecture, which is they're called transformers. So like when you look at GPT, it's generative pre-trained transformers. That transformers bit in GPT is what they sorted out. And that model or that architecture is kind of what's allowed it all to flourish, right? So without that sort of architecture, we would have never been able to do any of this stuff. And they never set out to even try to do that, which is kind of an amazing thing. So you have that architecture, and then the models became bigger and bigger and bigger. They added a little bit of what's called reinforcement fine tuning, which is basically like almost if you're treat training your dog and you keep giving the dog a treat every time it does something right. OpenAI had a bunch of people go and give the models a treat every time they did something that looked like a human. And you kind of mixed all that up together and you end up with ChatGPT, which is mind blowing. I mean, it was mind blowing to me when I saw it. I couldn't work out exactly what was going on. And I had seen these models for a long time thinking, what are they doing? How did they make it so good? Just unbelievable.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
So your particular use of AI is designing tools, using these large language models, designing tools to try and understand climate misinformation. Is that correct?
Yeah, so climate misinformation, but climate communication and political communication more generally as well. Yeah. So yeah, we do a lot of work. Our work really, like on the AI side, is really like all about trying to take bigger models and distill their knowledge onto smaller, sort of more open source and more sort of sustainable models. And so like that's most of our research is kind of at that nexus. Like, how do we take the knowledge maybe of a bigger model and start to try and use it to learn from a smaller model that doesn't need a big data center and doesn't need all these sorts of things. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think sometimes when we think about large language, I don't know, and when I think about something like ChatGPT, I imagine that it is looking at all the information ever put on the internet ever. And that's kind of crazy.
It sort of is. Yeah.
But you're filtering it down to valid sources, and sources. Is it more? Well, you're searching very specifically for sources that either you believe that are correct or that I don't know how.
It's a good question. Yeah. So I mean, some of our work is that. So it's basically it's setting up sort of knowledge bases of sort of trusted information from, the Met Office and places that are, or, scientific journals, things like that. And using an LLM to help us answer questions based on those sorts of trusted sources. And so LLMs are really, really good at that. It's something called retrieval augmented generation, but they retrieve information and then generate a response based on that information. And that's something like these models are quite good at. And so that's one way we use it to look at sort of mis and disinformation in that way. And the other way is basically by classifying. And so that's really like using a big model to try and help us learn a very specific thing. And you don't need the big model to look at the very specific thing. It's just a waste. And so, yeah, that's kind of the other area. I don't know if that makes any sense to people.
So how long have you worked in the kind of climate aspect of
Yeah, since the very beginning. Yeah, so our very first project on NLP was a climate related project. Yeah, and so it's been 14 years, I guess. Like we've been working sort of generally in that space, doing various things within sort of the climate communication field. So yeah, it's been a long time.
And how do you feel things have changed over that time in terms of the spread of misinformation around climate?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question as well. I mean, I think there's a lot of discussion now on the ability for AI to spread sort of misinformation sort of at unprecedented levels. And I think that's like a valid concern and that like something that should be thinking about. But like in our sort of work, like misinformation's been spreading for a long time without these models at volumes that like people couldn't read and keep up with. So I mean, I think at one level, right, it's the landscape is becoming more challenging. I would for sure. But at another level, we're still kind of fighting the same sort of fights in terms of trying to keep up with the flow of misinformation in a really difficult, highly connected online sort of ecosystem. So yeah, I mean, so there's been lots of change, and then and the one case kind of not as much as you would think, or at least from where I sit. Not as much as you might think.
So once you kind of you're using AI as a tool to identify what common themes or common sources of climate misinformation, or how are you sort of
so like in our work, like we have kind of two ways we go about it. So one sort of part of the classification is really trying to classify claims. And so some of these claims are misinformation, right? So climate change is not happening. Extreme weather has become worse because of climate change. Like sort of standard claims that you would find, but some of them aren't, right? So like models are uncertain. They are, right? Like climate models are uncertain. That doesn't mean climate change isn't happening, but they are uncertain. And so part of our work is like trying to just find and anchor conversations in these various claims. And so, but knowing that it's very context dependent, right? In the model sort of example gives that, kind of what we mean by that context dependence. So that's one half. And then the other half is really trying to build better retrieval augmented generation systems such that we can use LLMs to try and compare the things we see online or in the news to sort of trusted sources of information. And that's really like why I think most people studying climate, or not just climate, but any misinformation from a computational perspective, is so excited by these models, because it was very, very difficult to do that comparison sort of step. And it's absolutely essential. That verification stage is absolutely essential to being able to say whether something is just a claim that looks a lot like misinformation, but it's not, versus something that actually is. And so, a lot of the work now is organized around something that's typically called like generative debunking, but it's using these models to try and generate responses to various sort of forms of misinformation.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask next. Was kind of, once you've identified these common strands of misinformation, or common kind of senders of misinformation, what do you do with that? How do you stop it? How do you get some?
Yeah, it's really so there's kind of traditional approaches that would have sort of boots on the ground trying to respond in some way. Yeah, I mean there is like some more recent research to suggest that these models themselves, when constructed appropriately, can persuade, or at least kind of shift the dial on what people kind of believe or don't believe on climate. And it can be that can kind of go in a positive direction, or it can go potentially in a negative direction. So yeah, I mean, I think there are ways in which we can respond. But yeah, it's not easy, especially with major platforms kind of rolling back all of their protections. So it's a challenging time.
I'm in an echo chamber of, generally people around me believe climate change is real, and and listen to evidence, and but recently even the algorithms have even been sending me weird climate denial stuff, and stuff explaining that we should not, that we really should stay reliant on fossil fuels and things. I'm like, the algorithm's making some kind of weird mistake here, or someone is really paying for this to be pushed through to everyone. Because but it's terrifying. I'm reading these, and the thing is, I think it is so important to read that stuff. It's so important to be aware of what other people are seeing.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you have these great big shocks when somebody you can't believe that anyone voted for gets in, or just all these different things. You think,
absolutely.
I'm in this bubble. And yeah, we've done a bit of work around talking to people about kind of getting into other people's mindsets, and to do that, you do have to delve deep into your kind of Google search or whatever search, and
absolutely. I mean, you realize so many of these issues is just, it's totally wrapped up in your identity, right? Like as a whether it's a Democrat or Republican or Tory or Labor or whatever it might be, right? It's just these issues are multidimensional and like a part of you. And so yeah, it's really it is very important to kind of see it as like it's not just one issue. It's a kind of a milieu of sort of like issues that make up your identity.
But it is so hard to find information that doesn't align with what you already.
And I mean, that's just I know you really, I mean, like for us, we literally need to set, you have to clear your cookie history and get on a VPN, and because they're so tailored to what they think you're going to click on. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I want to understand a bit more from what you've done. What is the main motivation behind people pushing climate change denial and skepticism? Like, where is that? What's the point?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question that I mean, I think it would take a long time for us to sort of work out all of the sort of bits. But I mean, I think at the root, and there's a lot of literature to suggest this is the case, but you have a very strong fossil fuel, interest group, or set of interest groups that is pushing, has been pushing a message for many decades. And so, yeah, I mean, that sort of message has become wrapped up in these other sorts of identity politics, right? And sort of what it means to be conservative or liberal. But at the end of the day, you do have a very wealthy, very well coordinated sort of machine that doesn't, really, climate policy is not going to be good for business, regardless of what they may say. So I think Yeah, at the root of it, like kind of follow the money, and you'll probably follow the obstruction and follow,
Yeah.
why we're kind of in the predicament we are.
That's troubling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we are, I mean, people are fighting back,
Yeah.
and lots of, there's been lots of great things being done and lots of good, in the UK. It's been, so there's progress being made.
Yeah. Yeah. So thinking about AI again, so you mentioned it briefly, but about how AI maybe obviously you're using it very positively, but about how it may be worsening the spread of climate disinformation. In what ways is it mostly impacting on
Yeah,
it?
I mean, I think the number one thing with AI is that it's so good at representing different contexts, right? So like if I know a lot about you, like you said, this is the bubble I'm in, and this is the sort of things that I'm looking at.
Mm.
I can tailor a response to a model. The models are going to be very good at tailoring a response to you, right?
Yeah.
So you can get these hyper tailored and vary with the newest models, like extremely persuasive in the sense that model writing it versus me writing it, I don't think you'd be able to tell the difference.
Mm.
Especially if I give the correct context, like these are the sorts of things you would do. So, yeah, I think that earlier episode kind of talked about the sort of personalization of misinformation. I think that's the biggest change. Because before, what you'd have is these big bot networks that would be putting out kind of the standard sort of claims. That's going to have an impact, right? Especially at scale if you're seeing that over and over and over again. But that sort of juxtaposed against something that's hyper personal to you. We don't 100% know what that will do because there's not enough sort of evidence. But I mean, all of the psychological research you could sort of find up till now, I think would suggest that it's going to have an impact.
Mm.
So yeah, that's what worries me the most. I mean, and just overall the quality of these models. I mean, it's just even you see from I think so the newest Claude, so Claude Opus 4.7 just launched. I think like yesterday or the day.
Yeah.
Before. A new one launches every week, so that's just the latest one that launched. And if you look at that versus even ChatGPT, so that would like a couple of years ago, it's just the difference is stark in terms of the quality, at least from in the sort of field in the sort of space we're looking at. So yeah, it's alarming. Yeah,
It is.
yeah, very happy conversation. Yeah.
Well, I suppose along those lines, overall, do you feel I mean, you use AI positively, but overall, do you feel positive about AI, or do you feel kind of scared and negative and not?
Well, so I think I probably oscillate like most people. I can't
Yeah.
stay consistent, and it really depends on kind of where I'm looking, right? So like if I look at coding and I look at NLP and I look at like technical stuff, like I've never been so excited. Like it's kind of one of those things. It's like it's really we're able to do things now that I wouldn't have dreamed that I would have been able to do. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, and I was in it. It's not like I was like some dude that so like, and on that side, and I mean like these models as coding agents, things like that, like they are really good. And it makes sense, right? Like coding, things like that. It's like there's a clear sort of structure, rules. They're very good at that sort of thing. So that makes me really happy, but on the flip side, like I do really worry about like employment implications, for instance. I mean, data center implications, like the sort of environmental impacts. But I think sometimes it's misunderstood exactly the impacts. Like I worry, but I really worry about the implications for certain sectors of the economy because I just from where I say I think it will be sectors that are not usually targeted, and this is what you're seeing in the news right now. It's like kind of entry level white collar sort of jobs are being, or at least they seem to be getting hit the hardest. But it makes sense given where these models are really good, and then where they're not is like all the human stuff. It's like It's the stuff that really, like, we as humans don't really know what we want, so we can't tell a model to do it. You know, we kind of know it when we see it. Those sorts of things. Yeah, I'm less concerned.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it is a fundamentally changed world though, like, for sure, in my
Mm.
mind. Yeah, and there's no going back, unfortunately. So it's not like you can kind of stick your head in the sand. Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah.
I definitely need to get with the times. I'm very, I'm very old-fashioned.
Well, good. Hold on to that, I guess. Now, yeah.
I think I just every time I sort of think about using AI for, I don't know, pretty basic tasks,
Yeah.
I feel, what skill am I losing here? What have I lost from not spending the time to just analyze that myself or do that? I don't know. I mean, sometimes it's ridiculously useful, and I think at its kind of the kind of level that you're using it, amazingly useful, but the kind of level that most people are using it, I feel like it's hugely de-skilling.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's probably de-skilling, just writ large, but yeah, I mean, I think there's some research on that, like what we lose and like our
Yeah.
ability, like the critical thinking sort of hit you take by
Mm,
being able to lean on these models. So I think that's a real concern.
yeah,
And I don't know the answer. I mean, I guess we're just going to have to kind of fight back on it a little bit,
yeah,
like individually. Yeah, it's tough though, you know, it
yeah,
really is because you are at a disadvantage in many fields if you don't have that sort of access. So
yeah.
yeah.
One of
Yeah, I
my
mean, the other thing I worry about is access. Like,
mm, oh,
is that, you know, like, so, you know, I have access to the best models in the world, you know, and I
mm,
can kind of use them. And that's not the case. Even, you know, when I'm thinking about students using it, like how do
mm,
some students have access to really good models and some students don't, free versions. So I think there's a lot of challenges.
yeah. We ran an event the other day, and one of my friends who's an artist came along, and we wanted people to write about kind of how they felt about AI. And she wrote, "I want it to be doing the boring things. I don't I don't want it to be I don't want it to be making art. I don't want it to be creating and doing the things that we love doing." And I think
Yeah.
the interesting point as well, of it, that kind of loss of, doing the things that are really human and
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you get this in the coding space too. So, you know, like people are like, I'm not using it because I don't want to lose, like it's about the art
yeah,
of it, you know,
yeah,
versus giving it over to somebody else. Yeah.
yeah. It's,
I mean, AI art is so terrible, though. I hope your friend's probably fine for at least a while longer. But yeah,
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 no, it is pretty bad. Um, so we have a question from David from Totnes,
okay,
and he asks, "Do you see AI being used for both? So for misinformation on both sides of the political spectrum?"
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't see. Yeah, I mean, it's being used. Yeah, across the board. I
Mm,
think it's being used. I mean, and so the radical left and the radical right are both pushing messages often that are not sort of anchored in fact. And so, yeah, anytime you have that, you're going to have misinformation. And anytime you have misinformation now, you're typically going to have some sort of AI involvement.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, you were saying just now that once you have identified some, some misinformation, that one of the best ways to shoot that down is possibly using AI. So
I know, and that's yeah.
yeah,
I mean, we joked about this, but there's a bit of truth. It's just a bunch of
yeah,
AI fighting one another, you
yeah.
know, online, and it's getting increasingly difficult to tell the difference.
Mm,
And yeah, between these, but yeah, it's a really good. It is. It's used kind of across the board. I
mm.
mean, I will say that most of it still is coming from sort of bots, right? It's not like necessarily humans going on and doing it. So but yeah, it's definitely used on both sides of the aisle.
Mm, yeah. Um, oh, we've got another one. Great question. Oh, hold on. Good question from YouTube. Do you see? Oh, no, we've got that one. That's already popped up. Sorry. um, so I'm just going to see if we've got any other questions. Okay. what are the limitations of LLMs?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons. Like we kind of talked about it a little bit. I mean, for things that a human can't really describe very well, you kind of know it when you see it, sort of thing. Yeah, they're not going to be very good. I mean, for things that are less about, like, so we kind of talked about coding as something that has kind of really sort of strict rules that an LLM can learn and follow. It's going to be better than in places, or sort of areas where there are less kind of well-defined rules. Things that it hasn't already seen on the internet are going to be things that it's going to do less good at than things that it has seen. So yeah, I think there are sort of various ways where these kind of models fall down.
Yeah.
And it varies quite a bit from model to model. Again, like there's just quite a bit of difference between the sort of big frontier models and kind of this sort of smaller open models. Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just checking our spreadsheet to see if we've got. That's one. Nope, that's one we've already asked. So no, so I yeah. So with LLMs, so large language models, how good do you see them getting? Like,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, good. Like I mean, we got to hit some asymptote, some block at some point. But yeah, in terms of the development that we've seen so far, at least within the last couple of years, it's been yeah, they're going to get really good. I mean, what's happening now basically is they're moving from big models that try to answer all of your questions, to models that are really good at calling other models or making tool calls, or agentic AI. And so, yeah, there's a bit of a change right now in sort of how these models are being trained. But I think you're going to have another big sort of growth and capabilities once the models kind of move from the old sort of system, big model answering all your questions because it's seen all the internet, to very well trained model for calling other things when it needs it. That's a whole different ball of wax, because then it can pull up your banking app when it needs to do it, or go figure out how to fix the brakes in your car, or whatever it might be, right? It's very good at calling the things that it needs to call. And I think that's a whole nother area. So I think we're gonna see a couple more big increases in capabilities probably until it kind of flat lines off, in my mind, but I could be totally wrong. I probably am.
When we worked with a youth centre recently, there was quite a negative feeling
Yeah.
about AI generally. It was really interesting because I kind of thought that young people would be like, "Yeah, what an amazing new tool," and a lot of them said they felt it was ruining their education, which was really interesting. They felt that it was. I think that everybody was sort of cheating, but they also, a lot of them said they didn't feel it should be in their hands. They felt that it should be a tool that was only available to people who knew what they were doing or were using it well.
These are some enlightened youth.
I
Like,
know.
that's amazing.
No, we had some really interesting conversations with them, and but how would you get to decide who were the people that got access? Because you were talking about access, that not everyone has equal access to the same level of tools.
Yeah.
Who gets to decide, and how do you decide who accesses what? And
Yeah, I mean, this is my sort of personal, and I mean, this might be that, like, my coming from the US is like, I'm definitely more from the open, like I think that we should all have equal access to big models. And the onus is on us to sort of have the sort of training in place that people know how to use how to use these models effectively. And that's not currently there, and that would need to be in place in order for this to have a net positive outcome. So I think and it's very positive that these students are aware of that. You know what I mean? So I agree with them. But I don't think restricting access is ever the right approach. because what you're going to end up with is just some people that have the access and some people that don't. Some people that know how to use the model and some people that don't know how to use the models. And I don't think that's a very good situation. I've also been surprised. Like I've gone into my daughter's secondary school, and like I ask, how many people are using it? It's like none. Maybe they don't want to tell their teachers, maybe like, so it's a selection effect. But I get like from the blank stares in their eyes, like I get the feeling that they're really not using it in a way that I would have kind of expected.
Yeah.
Young, the university students, it's different, but yeah.
So are you finding that, from a university perspective, are you finding it quite complex now?
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Not
totally
to work or to, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I will say like Exeter has done I think a really good job, like on trying to stay out in front and having really kind of clear guidelines about using AI in an educational setting, but it's really, really difficult because, and it's not uniform, right? So like I teach a machine learning class. I require my students now to engage with an AI assistant, because if they don't, they're going to be so far behind everybody else when they get out, right? And like in the job market. So I really I encourage them not to like just put it in. Like really try to teach them, like you said, like this is how it should be used when you're coding, right? It's a very useful tool. If I was teaching, global environmental politics class or English class or whatever, then you really don't want, like it's a lot more difficult. So yeah, it really kind of depends on where you sit.
Yeah. It's such, I sound like an old woman now, but it's such a different world from
Oh, I know, this is
from
me
when
too. Oh, like with my PhD students, I'm like, oh, in my day, we used to program these models from scratch and blah 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 blah. They're like, all right, dude, yeah. So yeah.
I honestly just had textbooks and I looked up stuff in
Well,
textbooks and
oh
I
yeah, I know. I had
couldn't
textbooks
now.
too. We don't do that anymore.
It
No,
is crazy.
yeah.
Yeah. But very, very hard for people to, a wealth of information out there, but very hard for people, I think, now to find what's actually truthful.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think this is I can see it in my own immediate space, like it's leading to this distrust of everything,
Yeah.
in a way. I mean, I struggle though. I don't know whether it's going to have a net positive or negative effect, because at least in my immediate circle, it's like causing people to distrust things they see online versus the things that they go to the BBC or they go to wherever it might be to find that information, right? So they know that it's legit. So it's almost kind of forcing this having to look a little bit harder if you care enough to have good information, and then that's the big sort of if.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's tricky.
If you don't just read the AI summary of your set.
Exactly, and then just take that as true. Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. So there's another question. So we have been trying to gather kind of information to try and advise people about, on our website, we're compiling this kind of list of advising people about being kind of good pilots when they use AI. But so have you got any information, any ideas that we could add to there along that idea of kind of how to use it responsibly and carefully? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably do. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you're using it for searching information, right? Basically, the way to be a good pilot is to really always test what's it's coming back, right? So, like if we're talking about code, if it writes you code, you need to understand how to test that code, right? And in the same way, if you're using it as a plugin for a Google search and sources are coming back, then you need to verify those sources. And I don't think there's any better way of kind of trying to get at what is, because yeah, how to use these in a way to get good information out of them. I mean, I think there are ways in which you can use the tools to get better responses, and so that's like clarity of the prompt itself being, but yeah, I think it's really not trusting the sources that come out of these models.
Yeah.
And verify. I know that's kind of a non-answer answer, but it's kind of what I'm doing.
Yeah. It's such a tricky one, because sometimes that can actually, that process of kind of verifying everything can actually take longer than just seeking out a source from the first place that would would be a sensible source. I think
100%. I mean, I will say, like, in my view, especially with the big models, they're becoming better. Again, like I'm finding, because effectively all of them now are making an internet. They're making a web search. If you ask them a question, they're almost always going out to the web to do it. So in a way, it's not so different from a Google search. The difference is that you've lost all the agency of saying this is a crap source or this is a good source, and it's kind of bringing it back in a digestible form that makes it easier to read, but has these sort of, you can't control what it brings back, and so that's the real trade-off. But yeah, but they are becoming better, and I think they will continue to become better over time.
Yeah. So we've had a question on YouTube, so I'll just see if I can make it pop up on the screen. Did that work? Ta-da! Okay, so Rachel from Barnstable asks, is there a risk by using AI to think for us that we become dumber?
I'm honestly, like, I feel dumber sometimes. I mean, really. So yes, I mean, I think absolutely. And I mean, we talk about this on coding all the time, but I'm like, I've been programming for 15 years and I'll forget how to do things because I haven't used them because of an AI system is helping me. So absolutely. And I don't know what to do. I like, if you guys have good ideas or let me know. But I feel like it's like we have to just try and fight against it. But it's really hard because we're lazy.
Sometimes my idea is just to move to the middle of a wood and go off grid.
Well, and that's what right now we have a no screen sort of thing going on in my house. So the only reason why I can be on a screen is because of this, right? But like, if you can't have a screen, then you're not going to become dumber. You got to actually read. So yeah.
That's really good. So do you have that as a rule? Are you quite strict about screens?
Yeah, so it's just 2 days a week, and it's the most challenging 2 days of our parenting, like in the whole thing.
That's amazing, though.
We're trying, but yeah,
I find it really fascinating that when you speak to people that are very involved in tech or use these things in a even in a positive way, they have the strictest rules on the use of tech. And a lot of people that are behind designing social media, their kids are not allowed on social media because they know the power of it. And it's a really interesting thing. I think everyone assumes that techie parents would want their kids to be on everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're not. I mean, we try, but we're just like the next person. Yeah. But yeah, it is. I do really worry about us becoming dumber. And I don't know. I don't know if there's a good answer.
Yeah.
Because it's quite easy to use one of these agents.
Yeah, absolutely. And from a kind of climate information perspective, how do we make sure that we're not, like, how do you think we make sure we're not being swayed by something that is wrong? How do we get the best information? How do we navigate that horrible world?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's a lot of the same things before LLMs, right? I mean, it really is sort of like media literacy, climate literacy, understanding, like, really being sort of ready and like having your sort of cockles up of like that you can be misled. So it's called there's a whole literature sort of on inoculation and getting people really like prepared for sort of being hit with misinformation. I think it's those sorts of things we still have to do, whether you're getting the information from an LLM or you're getting it from Facebook or Twitter or whatever it might be these days. X. Sorry, this shows how old I am, but yeah, I think it's pretty much the same thing. It's just coming at us even faster.
Yeah. It is scary. I'm really scared. So yeah, have we got any other questions come through? Please do feel free. Sorry, I can't use my words to ping them our way. I've done that one, so I'm just looking through my sheet. Is there anything kind of from your work that you really want to share with people? Anything you've learned through your work so far where you think people need to know this or people need to understand this? Anything that you want to share?
Oh God, for my work, yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's something out there, but yeah, I mean, I guess on the AI side, it's more, I think that, yeah, we just you can't stick your head back in the sand. So I think we're all, as people, like for better or worse, going to have to figure out how to live with this sort of technology. Yeah, so I think, yeah, I think the sooner that we kind of come to that sort of realization, the better off people are going to be, and we can start to have more conversations about it making us dumber, and how we might want to sort of regulate against it, or how we might want to train youth to kind of use it properly, instead of, yeah, kind of just hoping it will go away, because it certainly isn't.
Do you think there's more that could be done kind of education wise to support people in
I mean, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that's, I mean, there's like the joke, like, it's AI is not going to take your job, but somebody that knows how to use AI is going to take your job. And like, I think that, like, from where I sit, and like certain industries, I think that's absolutely the case. So the more we train people how to use it appropriately, and how to be thinking about what makes a good prompt, and what makes a good test of information coming back, we're all going to be better off. And I think that's probably what the students, the youth that you're talking about, are responding to. They're like very aware, like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And somebody needs to show me, because this seems really powerful. And yeah, I think they've hit on something.
And I think for some of them, they felt that they didn't necessarily want to use AI
which is great as well. Which is great as well. Yeah, and I mean so maybe we won't get dumber.
Yeah. I mean, for some of them, they were using it anyway because they knew that, well, my friend has just used it and written this incredible essay, and I'm now being judged against that.
Yeah.
So they felt, well, I've got to use it too.
Yeah, it's the sort of AI arms race for essays. Yeah, no, I mean, it to a certain extent, it's true. I mean, I guess, like, most people at the uni will say, like, it's you can really see it, like, when people lean on it too hard. So still, even with really good models, but yeah, I mean, I'm glad to hear that some people are, though, saying, no, I'm not going to do it. And it's the same in the university classrooms as well. There's definitely people that are kind of anti using it, and I think that's great. I think you need to know how to use it, though. So you can choose not to, but I think, I think we'd be missing a trick if we didn't learn kind of how to use this tool.
Yeah. We've had a question here from Reg Godwin, and he says, Professor Stephen Hawking said AI will either be the best or worst thing humans have ever created. He was an optimist. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, gosh, it depends on the day, even the time of the day, I guess, how I would answer that question. Yeah, I mean, I think I lean more on the glasses half full, than empty on this. Yeah, again, just I like seeing the power, but even as I say this, I think, gosh, are people good enough at regulating things that are this powerful? And my answer is, like, no. so I mean, you can see how hard it is, though, is that I'm oscillating in the 30 seconds I've had to answer this question. So that kind of shows you, where I said, but I feel more positive than the sort of, AI, Terminator sort of situations that you see in the media. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to people and our ability to effectively govern a really powerful a really powerful tool, and I'm not sure how much faith I have on that front. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like with social media, they're only just catching up now, going, "Oh, this is problematic.
Absolutely.
Let's put in some legislation. Oh, let's start trying to look at the ethics of this," instead of making sure that's all solid before it's released on the public.
Well, yeah, no way. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it's even worse for these models, but yeah. But again, like there's so much there. It's like, again, like it's just a breakthrough in the natural language processing front. So it's things that we just could not have dreamed of doing.
Mm.
We're able to do quite easy now. So of course I feel good about it, but
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And you are using it in a really incredible way to weed out what is very toxic disinformation, and that's amazing.
Yeah, and other people on the show, right, of using it in very,
Yeah.
great ways of, like whether it's detecting methane leaks and this and that. I mean, there's all kinds of good uses as well. So it's a very difficult question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have another one from Reg as well, actually, which I'll pop up here now. How can we really tell how much water is used and saved by using AI?
Yeah, this is a really good question that, like, I'm probably not best placed to answer it. I mean, there are people that are trying to get really. There's a whole sort of branch of research going on now to how to best estimate the environmental impact of
Yeah.
these models. I mean, I will say that there is a lot of there's a lot of misunderstanding, like between like like using these models like we do to do like maybe a little like an inference. It's going to infer, write me a poem, about unicorns, and it writes me a poem. That's very different from the cost that it takes to train the models, and so inference versus training is often kind of put together or thought of in the same sort of way by people, but it's very, very different, right? So when you use it for inference, it's not. But the problem basically now is that like you have internet level inference, and so like every time Google puts the the description on, it's calling a model. So if that's happening, throughout the whole world, then that's gonna have pretty big effects.
Yeah.
But yeah, but in terms of the water, I don't know. We would have to ask, somebody else.
It's one of those really tricky things, isn't it, where we're distanced from the environmental implication of it. But I always feel that if your smart meter ticked away every time you did an AI search, or your water bill went up, everyone would be like, "Oh, I'm going to use this much more responsibly."
Well, for sure.
But because it's not visible.
And I mean, there were huge data centers before AI. I mean, of course,
Yes.
it's gone up. I mean, but like this call we're having right now, the server that it's running on needs to be cooled, right? Like all this, all the online gaming that people are doing. So it's again, I think we need to like it's apples and apples. We need to compare. But yeah, I don't know. I've heard some pretty wild estimates though on the amount of water it's taking. So yeah, stay tuned. I guess there's a whole research block on it. Maybe you could have somebody on the show that can answer that question.
Yeah. We've got another one. Oh, this is from Francisco Gonzalez, who asks, when they say LLMs reason, what do they mean by that?
Yeah. So like LLMs, they don't reason in the way you and I reason, or at least we don't think they do. What they do is they use something called chain of thought. And so what chain of thought is doing is basically you're just asking the model to break down its thinking step by step. And that's it. Like it sounds like, like these reasoning models and chain of thought, like these are all really big like terms in the sort of space right now. But really, at the end of the day, all that it's doing is asking a model before it makes a decision, break this down step by step so that we can get to the right answer. And the model breaks down why it got to that answer. And so that is basically a reasoning model. It goes from a model that's not reasoning to a reasoning model just by asking it. And so that's basically all it is when it comes to at the end of the day.
Cool.
Yep.
Brilliant. Right, we have, just checking that I've asked all these ones. Okay, so just as a last question, unless anyone has any final burning questions to ping in the chat there, I was just going to say, what key things would you like viewers to know or to take away from this discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's, just don't stick your head in the sand. Like, we're gonna have to, come to grips with this technology, and it can be used for good, it can be used for bad, but you're gonna end up having to use it. So I think we need to all just try to do our best at learning how to use it correctly. And yeah, I think other than that, yeah, good luck.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So yeah, unless you've got anything else you want to share, I can round it up. But yeah.
No, it's been great. Yeah, it's been great chatting, and thanks to everybody for the questions.
Well, we so appreciate you giving your time tonight, and it's been so interesting doing this series and hearing about, I know this chat we have talked about a lot of the negative things, but it could be, but it is really exciting to know that you are someone that is using it really positively, and that you've learned how to use it well, and also you mentioned about sustainability, and that you talked earlier about reducing down the size of the, actually we've got like a couple of minutes. Can you quickly delve into that, actually, because I want to understand that a little bit better about how that a sustainability thing, that limiting down of the
I mean, it's more so one nice aspect of it is that it's more sustainable. So like basically another nice aspect is it's cheaper. A third is that typically when you're doing this too, you're using open source models, so you know what's happening, and you can kind of control the model quite a bit more than you can if you're just going out to a service. But what basically people are doing, including us, like lots of different teams, are sort of taking these large, really big models and querying them. So there is some sustainability sort of issues there, but you don't have to ask you just ask a sort of a handful of questions to these models, and then we use sort of some really clever techniques to then distill the big model's information onto the smaller model. So basically, the little model learns how to do a task like the big model can. And it's not every task where the big model you can kind of ask it anything and it's going to respond. The smaller model is going to be really good at a particular task, like saying, is this newspaper article about climate change and health? But in doing that, you can kind of get really good big model performance, but with a very small model cost. So something you can run on your computer. So you're not using water, and it's not having to run in a data center. And I think that's like a lot of what we do is that, and I think that's going to be a lot of the future that you see is really this idea of distillation, of trying to get, whether it's for environmental purposes or for cost concerns or whatever it might be. I think that's kind of it's going to be a really strong bit of the sort of AI infrastructure ecosystem.
Yeah, cool. Love it. That's brilliant. So yeah, thank you. You've been really amazing, and keep doing the great work that you're doing, because it's nice to know that someone is trying to stop us all being persuaded in the wrong direction. I don't know, it's just, it's worrying feeling like you're being manipulated. So it's nice to know that someone is cracking down on that. So thank you so much for your time, Travis. That was brilliant. So this is our final live stream for the moment on this project. It's been really fascinating. We hope you've enjoyed the series as well. And you can catch up on all of the discussions on our YouTube channel. And just a massive thank you to everybody who joined us tonight, everybody who asked questions, everyone who watches it later. Hello. And really big thank you to you, Travis, for your time. And
Well, thanks. Yeah, thank you for being such an excellent host. Yeah, and thanks for the questions. Yep.
Oh, it's been great chatting to you.
Great.
Thank you. Bye-bye. I'm trying to work out how to end the stream now. This is how untech savvy I am. Thank you. Right.
Like